Right here is the punctuated version of your textual content. It's been 2 years on the grounds that NASA's James Webb Area Telescope gave us a lovely first take a look at the depths of our universe. The $10.1 billion telescope is the biggest and maximum powerful in space, shooting superb pics. Mercury, residing in a cosmic warm region, holds critical clues to the origins of our solar machine. But it's been one of the maximum tough planets to take a look at. Mercury isn't always just a dead rocky planet close to the sun. It's hiding secrets and techniques that no person, now not even NASA, saw coming. Those secrets ought to change everything we thought we knew approximately Mercury. After nearly 50 years, NASA's telescopes have located something so stunning that they had rather maintain it underneath wraps. What exactly did the James Webb Telescope find, and why does it rely so much? Mercury, the smallest planet in our Sun gadget, has usually been a mystery to NASA. It sits closest to the Sun, so it is frequently overshadowed, actually and figuratively, via its greater well-known acquaintances, like Venus and Earth. You may think Mercury is just a dry, dull rock spinning ad infinitum around a massive fireball. But there may be greater to it than meets the attention. For starters, it's first-rate tiny. If Earth had been a basketball, Mercury might be kind of the dimensions of a golfing ball, a bit larger than our moon. It is this tiny but mighty individual that makes Mercury so exciting. Now, you may marvel, what is the large deal approximately Mercury being close to the solar? Its proximity means it studies temperature extremes that would fry and then freeze something. For the duration of the day, Mercury's surface can get up to a sizzling 800 degrees Fahrenheit, 430 degrees Celsius. However, at night it may drop all of the manner right down to minus 290 degrees Fahrenheit, 180 degrees C, greater than double that of Siberia, the coldest location on this planet. Believe that. Mercury's floor seems like the moon, included in craters and scars because it doesn't have tons of an environment to defend it from rogue meteors. While the one's area rocks come crashing in, they depart marks that stay for all time. These craters have even earned names like Boven and Shakespeare, almost like Mercury is a cosmic tribute to Earth's wonderful artists. Whilst did we start learning approximately this mysterious little global? It wasn't until 1974, while NASA's Mariner 10 swung through, that we were given our first actual glimpse. Mariner 10 became a real pioneer, making not simply one, but 3 flybys of Mercury, a bit planet that had in no way had visitors before. The spacecraft dispatched returned over 2,800 photographs and gave us our first real taste of simply how cratered and rugged Mercury's surface definitely turned into. After Mariner 10, Mercury went quiet for over 30 years in terms of human exploration, till 2004, whilst Messenger got here along. Via 2011, Messenger had entered Mercury's orbit and began taking pics, mapping out its floor like a detective solving an historic mystery. What did we research? Lots. We discovered that Mercury had greater surprises like a magnetic discipline, something nobody anticipated from a planet so small and apparently dead. Any other shocker? Mercury is heavy, absolutely heavy. It has a large iron middle that takes up approximately 85% of its extent, manner bigger proportionally than Earth's core. Scientists trust this could be because Mercury lost a large part of itself in a cosmic hit and run, a concept this has got a few people humming. Mercury is full of oddities. For instance, its orbit is elliptical, that means it is towards the solar at a few factors and further at others. This indicates now not simplest loopy temperature swings but additionally bizarre sunrises and sunsets. At certain spots on Mercury, the sun can upward push, pause, circulate backward, and then hold going. Mercury can be tiny. However, it's packed with peculiar traits like sizzling warmth, icy situations, massive cores, and odd orbits. So, what does all this suggest for the mysteries of its rotation and its day? That's longer than 12 months. Let's get into it. Why does Mercury's day make no sense in any respect? Consider a planet wherein an unmarried day is sincerely longer than an entire year. Sounds puzzling, right? Well, it is Mercury for you. Mercury takes most effective 88 Earth days to complete one orbit across the solar, but it takes a whopping 176 Earth days to spin around simply as soon as on its axis. Which means by the time Mercury completes one rotation, an afternoon, it has already traveled 2 times around the Sun. That's why, on Mercury, A year is half of the duration of a day. No surprise this tiny planet gets a recognition for being a touch weird. But why does Mercury act this way? All of it comes down to its rotation and the have an impact on of the Sun's huge gravitational pull. You notice, Mercury is in what scientists name a 3:2 spin-orbit resonance. This means that Mercury completes 2 orbits around the solar for every 3 rotations on its axis. It's almost like Mercury and the solar are locked in a few form of cosmic tango, with Mercury constantly being pulled only a little off balance. This tug of struggle between the Sun's gravity and Mercury's spin is why its rotation is so slow and its day outlasts its year. The gravitational pull has slowed Mercury's spin down over billions of years. This spin-orbit resonance also explains why the solar seems to do that weird back-and-forth trick in Mercury's sky. As the planet nears the nearest part of its elliptical orbit to the solar, it accelerates barely, enough that its rotation can't keep up, causing the solar to appear as if it is moving backward for a quick time before persevering with on its manner. It's like Mercury's rotation and orbit get a little out of sync, and the Sun moonwalks across the sky for a second. What is even wilder is how all these precise actions create a number of the maximum severe conditions in our Sun system. Due to its sluggish rotation, one side of Mercury bakes inside the Sun for months, while the opposite stays inside the darkish, freezing bloodless. It is no wonder Mercury is understood for its top-notch temperature swings. It is like one half of is a wilderness at excessive midday, whilst the alternative one half is Antarctica at the hours of darkness. The day-night time cycle is in contrast to something we enjoy right here. There may be no mild transition from day to night time, just a brutally long, scorching day accompanied with the aid of an endless, icy night. Mercury's particular spin and orbit don't just make for exciting records. Additionally, they leave scientists scratching their heads. Information how Mercury were given into this peculiar pattern facilitates researchers study greater about the forces at play inside the early solar system. Become Mercury always like this? Or did something appear to slow it down and throw it into such an bizarre spin? Those questions are nevertheless being debated, with new theories and models trying to give an explanation for how Mercury ended up the manner it is today. Mercury's ordinary rhythms make it a world of extremes, strange orbits, long days, and extreme warmness and cold. But that is simply a part of the puzzle. What different shocking discoveries can we discover in digging deeper into Mercury's core and magnetic area? Billions of years ago, the early solar gadget became a wild place. It wasn't all peaceful orbits and twinkling stars. Rather, it became greater like a cosmic collision, with planets forming, smashing into every different, and looking to stake their claim around the Sun. Mercury might have gotten the short stop of the stick in these chaotic happenings. Scientists think that Mercury turned into worried in a huge collision at some point in its kids. This concept, called the hit-and-run collision idea, shows that Mercury didn't start off because the small, dense planet we see nowadays. Instead, it'd have been tons extra widespread with a thick mantle and lots extra mass. However then, out of nowhere, every other large item slammed into it. This intense impact stripped Mercury of its outer layers, leaving in the back of a skinny shell and a huge iron middle. This is why Mercury has an outsized core that makes up more or less 85% of its extent, in comparison to Earth's core, that's handiest approximately 15% of its universal size. It's nearly like Mercury is sporting a tiny rock jacket over a vast iron coronary heart. This leftover center makes Mercury so heavy compared to its length, nearly like a strong steel ball pretending to be a planet. The idea of this massive collision isn't simply wild imagination. Scientists have evidence to return it up. Whilst NASA's Messenger spacecraft started out investigating Mercury in detail, it discovered that the planet became surprisingly dense. It additionally spotted some abnormalities inside the composition of Mercury's floor, like a loss of lighter elements that could commonly be there if Mercury had its complete outer layers intact. Believe peeling an orange and being left with only a tiny bit of the peel and mostly the juicy center. It really is Mercury after its unlucky cosmic coincidence. This idea paints an image of the early Sun system as a pretty tough community, with planets and protoplanets crashing into each other like teenagers at a bumper vehicle rink. Most effective, the most powerful or luckiest survived. And in this case, Mercury wasn't so lucky. It's type of incredible to reflect on consideration on how this little planet, which appears so quiet and unassuming now, has the sort of wild and dramatic backstory concerning large cosmic collisions and terrific violence. The aftermath of that collision changed the whole thing for Mercury. It misplaced a lot of its outer cloth, however, saved its hefty iron core, and that core, as we formerly stated, is a huge cause why Mercury has a magnetic area. Even though it's such a small planet, most planets Mercury's length don't bother with magnetic fields, but Mercury still hangs on to one. The core stayed molten sufficient to generate this magnetic discipline, which is quite rare and awesome for a planet that seems so tiny and lifeless from the outside. So, changed into it simply one effect that changed Mercury, or should it were more? A few scientists argue that there were multiple influences. Perhaps Mercury had a few unlucky days hundreds of years ago. Whatever the case, it's clear that Mercury went through a lot to emerge as the planet we see today. All the one scars on its floor aren't simply from meteors. They tell the tale of a planet that has been battered, bruised, and stripped right down to its very core. Mercury's massive center thriller is just one piece of its puzzling records. However, what approximately the aftermath of that big collision? How does it tie into Mercury's peculiar magnetic subject and the intense conditions we see on its surface today? In case you think your neighborhood climate is unpredictable, Mercury's temperature swings will make any earthly heat wave or cold snap appear like a gentle breeze. Without a real surroundings, Mercury has nothing to help alter its temperature. The cause for those wild swings is that Mercury does not have what we might name a proper environment. On this planet, we've got air that traps warmness and spreads it round, preserving things highly comfortable. Mercury, on the other hand, is a minimalist. It lacks that comfy layer, so while the solar hits it, there may be not anything to preserve in the warmness. It's like turning on a blowtorch, after which, without delay, pointing at some other place. And while night falls, all that warmth radiates away into space, leaving the surface freezing bloodless. It is the ultimate warm and cold dating. Rather than a thick surroundings, Mercury has something called an exosphere. Sincerely, calling it an environment might deliver it an excessive amount of credit. The exosphere is greater, like a thin, fleeting mist of particles slightly hanging around the planet. It is made from atoms which are knocked off Mercury's floor via the sun wind and micrometeoroids. The debris that make up this exosphere encompass hydrogen, helium, and oxygen. The surprising component? There is even a piece of water vapor. Yes, water on a planet, it is so near the sun you'd think it'd evaporate instantly. It turns out that once the solar wind hits Mercury's floor, it is able to purpose a response with oxygen inside the rocks, growing small quantities of water vapor. It's no longer like there are lakes or whatever, a long way from it. However, the presence of water vapor is one of those little discoveries that make Mercury all the extra charming.